Hi, hello. I thought I'd do a video because I can't be with you. I'm in an exotic, undisclosed location, which you can ask me about when next you see me. I've got a little task for you to do, but apart from that, what I thought I'm just going to talk for a bit, and then you can tell me how relevant it is. You're aware of how many words your essay has to be, I'm sure. And if you're just listening to this video, it was on the screen, so you may have missed out. You have to rewind. When is it due? That's another thing that I can reveal visually, but you should already know. So given that it's due on X date and it's X amount of words, you should have started already. Probably don't need me to tell you that. You've got your subject, which is your very particular field of research. You should also have a theme, which is a broader, deeper version of that thing. So let's say your subject is Ninja Turtles. The theme could be commercialization or the reappropriation of Italian painters in contemporary society. Something, you've got a specific theme. Let's say it's football. It shouldn't be. And then that's the subject, football, and then your theme might be fitness. Just to make the point that the subject is the exact thing you're writing about, and the theme is something broader it's the underbelly of it. And that's useful because when you're doing your research, you might run out of things written on your exact subject, but you won't run out of things written on the theme. I think. So that's useful. How many images should you have? Nobody knows. There's a mystery. We can't tell you because then you'll just get that exact number of images and think that's the right thing to do. Really, the images have to be completely connected to what you're talking about visually. So everyone's will be different. There's an example included of a tattoo essay that did very well last year, and that had a particular number of images, so you could use that as your benchmark. Don't include 1,000. 6 isn't enough, so somewhere between those two. What's another one? How many sources should you have? You should have a lot of sources because you're going to need a couple of sources per paragraph. You shouldn't be writing too much. I know if you're passionate about your subject and you know about it already, you'll have a lot to say, but you shouldn't get through a paragraph without 1 or 2, maybe 3, either direct quotes or paraphrases, because your task is really to do some fantastic research from more than one side of a subject, and then fuse all those aspects and see how nuanced a particular subject is, rather than try to find out the exact answer to a particular question, like have films become more commercial? ? And the answer is yes. That's not very interesting. But if you were to say, what are the driving factors that have led commercial cinema to use techniques of avant-garde film, I'm just making up a title as I go, then you've got multiple things that you can research, and then your answer can't be a yes or a no. It's going to be something a bit more interesting. Okay, you don't have to write in an essay voice. You don't have to pretend you're like a boffin from the old days. You can just write the way you speak. That would be good. But I would also advise against making grand statements, as if that makes your work seem a little bit more professional somehow, like David Bowie was the best entertainer of all time, or more makeup has been produced in the last 15 seconds than it ever has in history, or something, like big bold claims that you can't back up. although I appreciate the temptation to do that because it's fun. But I would try to encourage you to think of the breadth of your research as the fun stuff, because you're digging deep like a detective with a grudge, and that's why it's fun. And then when you start making connections between things that seemed unconnected, that's exciting, and you can do that in your own way, in your own style. Please. Did I mention I've recorded this a few times and my phone's kept saying you run out of space, so I've just deleted my entire life and now I'm re-recording. But images, your images should tell a story, a consecutive story, or a chronological story. So if you're I think I've already said this. If you're doing self-portraits from, I think I've said that, cancel it. Okay, I hadn't already said it, so I'm going to say it now. If your essay is about the history of portrait painting from 1500 to 1900, if you lay out your images one by one, you can just see them as a sequence chronologically. It's easy to tell what you've missed out. So you might have a massive 200-year gap in your essay. And so looking at the images by themselves is a useful way of checking that. If you were to make a PowerPoint presentation and you're on your way to deliver it, and something happened to you, God forbid, if somebody else got hold of your PowerPoint slides and it was just images, they should be able to get a sense of what story you were telling with your essay research, because there should be enough imagery to make it clear the point you were making. Whether it's the evolution of a certain style, or I don't know, don't want to give you any ideas. I don't want to spoil your originality by suggesting too much, but I think you get the point. It can help you with your research just to check if your structure is sound by looking through your images and seeing if everything is in place or if there are any gaps. I think that's the point I was making. Thank you. Okay, yeah, your intro and your conclusion. Your intro is think of your essay structure as having three chunks. You've got your intro, your main body text, and then your conclusion. So if you think about it as if you're ruining a joke, you talk about the ingredients of the joke, and then you tell the joke. That's the middle of your dissertation or your essay. And then at the end, in your conclusion, you explain why the joke was really funny. So your intro says what the ingredients are of the essay, what the structure will be. Then you've got the essay containing the structure of the different chapters. And then the conclusion just says everything again. It sort of says the same thing as the introduction, except with all your best quotes and all your brilliant points condensed. So you don't want your intro to give the game away. You want to set up in the intro, hint at, this is what I'm going to look into, and who knows where it may go. And in your conclusion, you say, aha, now we see where we went. What a jolly ride we've been on. We've looked at this thing. I've uploaded it to the Now. It was my James Bond, part of a lecture on title sequences. And I talked about James Bond for a bit. So I've included that here just to give you an idea that, and I'm now reading off the screen, your essays should be full of references from various sources. It will help you to use various breeds of sources. So academic books, yes. JSTOR, go for it. But a healthy variety of other stuff will help. Interviews, articles, poems, plays, TV shows, news articles. It's got to be stuff you agree with and supports your argument, but please, for the love of all that is sacred, find examples of people that you disagree with, because that strengthens your argument. Or you might find that your attitude changes when you start looking into the other side of a particular subject. You can also find statistics as well. That can be quite useful. If you're looking at, like, for example, films, if you're talking about the decline of film or something, you can look at audience statistics. Stats are good. It doesn't always have to be quotes from textbooks, or find something that's relevant in a novel. Would help me, because it can be to do with the theme, not just the exact subject. Okay, what else have we got? Many of your sources will be directly related to your subject. I think I've just been saying this. Some will only be related indirectly, or just related to the theme of your essay. So if the theme is the deeper, more broad aspect of your work. For example, if your subject is Ninja Turtles, your broader, deeper theme might be commercialization. So it's really useful to have a theme, because then it gives you a different set of shelves to look on, speaking metaphorically, and what's the opposite of that? Practically, realistically. Okay, so have a look at the James Bond thing. It's too small to be called an essay, but it's a piece of written work with some quotes in it. Identify, I would like you, this is like work you've got to do. Identify the types of quotations and references. So they're different types, they're different styles, they're different breeds of references and sources. Look them up, copy and paste them, see what they are, see where they're from. I haven't given a list of references at the end, because that makes it a bit too easy in this case. And I'd like you to ask yourself and answer if they're directly or indirectly related to the subject. Okay, now that should help you see what I'm talking about with the difference between just going out and trying to cherry pick quotes that support the thing you already wanted to say, or if you are researching more broadly and you find something that's a bit more relevant than I was expecting, or it doesn't prove the thing I was hoping it does, but I'm going to use it to say the opposite thing. And then, it just gets a bit more nuanced and complex if you're doing genuine research in different areas. Okay, I remember the other thing I was going to say. I was in class the other week, and I was chatting to some students, and I think Bartek and Ezra were talking about films or something behind me, and I heard the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in a classroom. Bartek said, "I don't know," and they were talking about how things have changed in title sequences or something. And what usually happens when you're talking about something that you've experienced is you just instantly come up with a theory, and you think, this is the case, I've got a little bit of information, and I'm going to just land on my fantastic conclusion because it feels good. But to hear somebody say, "I don't know," was a great relief, because all that means is the next step is actually finding out. Because it's very easy to either think you know, or pretend to know, or claim to know. But if you can admit that you don't know, that's when you can start making progress and doing some good research. So admit that to yourself. I admit it to myself every day. What else is new? You've obviously got a structure that I talked about last time. So that was one that I made up, but it's useful. Like, you've got your subject, look at the historical context of it, look at some things that relate to contemporary life. If you can, if you can't, I'd be absolutely amazed. But I look forward to hearing about what you've got, what research you've done. I prefer to go to a library and browse, because let's say I'm looking up a book on Chantal Akerman. I go to the library, I look for her book, and then I see something completely unexpected next to it that somebody's put in the wrong place. I think, oh my God, it's related somehow. And that's not something you can get if you're just doing a search online. You never get those unexpected, coincidental flashes or you know, trying to think of another example. You're looking for the section on comic books, and they've moved it, so now you're accidentally looking at etchings, and you don't know what they are, so you pick one off the shelf and you realise, oh my god, fantastically relevant to the essay I did last year. It's a shame I can't use it this year, but you've learned something, so I think that's what we're here for. Any questions? Let me know. Just looking around here, does anything jog my memory? No. So do some work. You've got your essay title, or you've got your essay subject. Turn that subject into a question. Try to approach that question with a genuine sense of curiosity, like a detective with a grudge, as I've probably said before, and you'll be grand.
Nice one, bye.